But I think they understand, too, that they do need Europe. They do need other nations, particularly in dealing with Ukraine and Russia, because sanctions are levied on Russia by Europe, too. And Europe's got to be part of this package. So I think right now they're trying to put two things together that are contradictory. One is we've got to work with Europe. Europe is an important player here. They're part of the solution to any kind of peace in Ukraine. On the other hand, the administration has been very strong on this, and they've said this, that they see themselves as an independent player, not so constrained by multilateralism, et cetera. That's their general approach. They're going to have to amend that somewhat, I think, in dealing with Ukraine, because we got to bring the allies along.
Let's bring you a quick update on that announcement. Just an hour ago, President Trump posted on his Truth Social site that a ceasefire deal has been reached between India and Pakistan. The post reads, after a long night of talks mediated by the United States, I am pleased to announce that India and Pakistan have agreed to a full and immediate ceasefire. Congratulations to both countries on using common sense and great intelligence. Well, joining us now with their thoughts is Jim Townsend, former Deputy Secretary of Defense for Europe and NATO under Presidents Obama and Biden. Jim, good afternoon. Thanks for giving us your time.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for calling.
This looks like a big win for the Trump administration.
Well, I think it is. There's a lot of winners here. I think most important, of course, is the ceasefire that has been agreed to, and the guns have fallen silent. It's been quite an escalatory 24 hours, and there was a lot of worry this morning in Washington when everyone woke up who didn't know about these talks going on behind the scenes, that things were escalating out of control. And so I think as far as the Trump administration is concerned, they get a lot of credit. Marco Rubio, others working through the night to bring this together. And so that's another win. And that's here in Washington for the Trump administration.
There's not a lot of detail on exactly what was discussed and perhaps what concessions were made from either side. Do you think we're going to get more detail there, Jim?
I think more detail will be forthcoming. But as you point out, I mean, this is a very tender time. All the sides have announced that they've agreed to this ceasefire. These two countries have gone through, as you know, periods of violence between both. So they've been here before in terms of ceasefires and what's demanded of each side, et cetera. So what I'm hoping is right now, the talks are continuing as they nail down the details, and this ceasefire will survive over the next couple of days.
Yeah, we've been told that they will speak again on the 12th of May. Before we got to that ceasefire, a lot of discussion was being had about the US's relationship with Pakistan and also Pakistan's relationship with China. That can get quite complex, can't it?
Well, it's very complex, as you point out, and that's what makes having a policy that you can be consistent with. Having that policy is tough in that area because things can change. But you're right; the U.S. relationship with India is very close and gets closer as we deal with China, and then of course Pakistan. We have a history with them of being close, but things have fallen apart a bit over the past few years. The Taliban, of course, their support for the Taliban, their, Osama living in Pakistan. I mean, there's a lot of things that made our relationship a bit tenuous with Pakistan. And so, and then you throw China into the mix, and it is just as complex as it was 100 or 200 years ago in that region.
Jim, before we go, I want to get your thoughts briefly on what is happening in Kyiv today. We've got Emmanuel Macron's giving a press conference at the moment. We're also have heard from Volodymyr Zelensky. This coalition of the willing is really pushing very hard for a 30-day ceasefire to kick in on Monday. Russian side doesn't seem to be wanting to engage. Are we going to see the White House step up and put more pressure on Russia? We've had that Truth Social post from President Trump last week saying perhaps Vladimir Putin is not that interested in peace. Is there anything else left in the president's locker to add pressure to Putin?
Well, I think there is. And certainly I hope the administration does step up and help out this coalition of the willing by putting on a U.S. Pressure campaign. That would be just incredibly important. It's something that the administration has wanted to do anyway. and has been pushing in terms of bilateral talks. So this is a natural for the administration to step into this that the coalition of willing has started, and to say, look, we're going to put more sanctions on that really bite. I mean, that's one approach. But another approach, too, is we know that Putin still wants to try to have a relationship with the president. He has in mind bigger things that can come from a Russia-U.S. relationship if it goes in the right direction, particularly the lifting of sanctions, but of course, business deals and this type of thing. So there is still motivation in Moscow with Putin not to throw the baby out with the bathwater, if you will, not to just walk away himself. There's some things for him to gain. So I think all eyes will be on Putin if Trump, in fact, picks up the phone, calls to Moscow and says, look, get on board this 30-day ceasefire.
Does it strike you as odd, Jim, that ever since the Trump administration has come into office, when it comes to these negotiations, they've been very separate with the rest of Europe? We had those negotiations in the Middle East where Marco Rubio went and the Ukrainian delegation went, but we've never had the US along with, for example, today, we could have had Marco Rubio there. Perhaps in a Biden administration, the US would have been very present in today's meeting in Kyiv, but they're not there. Can we read much into that?
Well, I think it's an example of the approach that this administration has towards how it wants to conduct its diplomacy. There's certainly an element here about Europe and saying we're not going to do things the way we've done in the past as part of a multilateral approach. Think about the Balkans fighting in the 1990s. We were all leagued up together trying to deal with that. And this is the opposite. This is where the administration feels that it is going to conduct its diplomacy, its negotiations the way it wants to itself, and not feel constrained by getting other nations to come along, etc. But I think they understand, too, that they do need Europe. They do need other nations, particularly in dealing with Ukraine and Russia, because sanctions are levied on Russia by Europe, too. And Europe's got to be part of this package. So I think right now they're trying to put two things together that are contradictory. One is we've got to work with Europe. Europe is an important player here. They're part of the solution to any kind of peace in Ukraine. On the other hand, the administration has been very strong on this, and they've said this, that they see themselves as an independent player, not so constrained by multilateralism, et cetera. That's their general approach. They're going to have to amend that somewhat, I think, in dealing with Ukraine, because we got to bring the allies along. They're just not on the forefront of doing that. We'll have to see. This is a test case today. If the administration can weigh in with Russia and support what the coalition is doing, that would show at least a U.S. engagement with the coalition, which would be great. If they sit it out and they just let the coalition go their own way towards success or not, that would be unfortunate. But that might be their choice too. But it's just the way the America First approach is in terms of diplomacy. It's the U.S. out there on its own, more than in league with friends.
Jim, thank you for your time. Really appreciate it. Jim Townsend there, former Deputy Secretary of Defense for Europe and NATO under Presidents Obama and Biden.